Have you ever had one of those moments where you're knee deep in something and realize you have made an unconscionable error in judgment? Maybe you're at the store and you realize you left the oven on at home for the past 7 days, or you're driving alone and you realize you haven't changed out your bald ass tires in 6 years and you're about to crash into something very large and very pointy. There's that sinking feeling in your stomach. Something has gone horribly wrong, and you may not know it yet, but you will soon. This feeling sums up the entire state of Louisiana. After the first 2 Atlas Obscura videos on Alabama and Mississippi, we were having fun. We'd been actually plugging away at Tennessee in 2-day increments, and that video may or may not be done soon. Still, we wanted to plan another big trip, and Louisiana seemed fun. I'd been to New Orleans before, and I consider it one of the 3 cities in the US that's actually good. It goes New York, Vegas, New Orleans, in that order. Louisiana is like a pearl of a very strange culture in the South, mainly because it was French for about 7 million years before the US bought it for the modern equivalent of about $20. So you have this blend of Bible Belt Southerner with Texas guys, and throw that into a blender with some French seasoning. What do you get? Some of the best food in the world, and a long list of Atlas Obscura destinations to visit. I grabbed my buddy Jake and headed off with a plan in mind, a plan that would soon be shattered to pieces because this diabolical state had other things in mind. You're not supposed to swear in the opening part of a YouTube video, so I need to be a little bit careful with my wording. I know I'm not monetized, but I make my videos with the idea that maybe someday I will be able to hold in my hand the delicate green check mark. With that in mind, we saw some absolutely fantastic things and had life-changing experiences in Louisiana. We also had some The first thing that will go across your mind as you cross over the border into Louisiana is more than likely, is my suspension shot? The answer is no, the roads are just like that. I never really talked about the transportation aspect of these trips that much, but as you can imagine, it takes a lot of driving, and I made a little bit of an oopsie. See, the roads in Louisiana are not just terrible, haven't been paved since the 60s tier concrete nightmare fuel, but they're winding. They go all over the place, because half the state is underwater and the other half will be soon. There is a monumental amount of planning that goes into these, and I did not take into consideration that Louisiana is actually very fucking big. Louisiana, on paper, is about the same size as Alabama, but with its roads looking like varicose veins, those travel times start to add up. Our first stop took us 6 hours to drive to, and it was this. This is Grant's Canal, a failed effort to bypass Confederate blockades during the Civil War by just taking the river and pushing it somewhere else.
So, the story of this location is basically when the Civil War was going on, Ulysses S. Grant, he saw how the Confederates were going up and down the Mississippi River. It was a big part of their transportation. Because it was such a big part of their transportation, he was saying, hey, this transportation up and down the Mississippi River, when they go to the Confederacy and they go to the Union, and the Confederates take the boats up and down the Mississippi River, and the Mississippi River bends in certain ways, and it would be advantageous for the Union to have the transport. The Confederates used to go up the Mississippi River and go down the Mississippi River, and they use these steamboats and tugboats, all sorts of boats, and have their transport up and down the Mississippi River. And what happens is they take the Mississippi River, and Ulysses S. Grant is saying Mississippi problem. He's got the river, and it goes to the north and south, and it's all over the Mississippi. And they transport things across the Mississippi River and down the Mississippi River. It's really important that Ulysses S. Grant takes these up and down the Mississippi. This is a big problem for one of the backbones that we have. These boats transport.
This is actually shared with Vicksburg in Mississippi because the river in question serves as the border between Mississippi and Louisiana. On the Mississippi side, you have this nice, lovely plaque and park, and on the Louisiana side, we have a chevron. I'm going to do the tier list thing again for this one, but we forgot to record debriefs for about 80% of these, so it's just going to be me talking after the fact. Since there was nothing here, I'm going to pop this into the closed tier, which is going to get real fucking full. You can play a drinking game at home where you take a shot if we arrive at a destination and it's just gone, but you will die. Our first real destination comes in the form of these here mounds. This is Poverty Point World Heritage Site, a cool little Indian mound site that's not Moundville, but still really cool to see. They've got a pretty nice museum and a view of the bayou, but there's only a small handful of mounds here. Not to toot my own state's horn, but our mounds are so much bigger and more plentiful than these mounds. C tier. After that, we head off to Monroe for the Chennault Museum, a museum dedicated to veterans and specifically General Claire Lee Chennault, a World War II fighter who played a major role in defending China from Japanese invasion. There's some very cool planes out front we took a look at, and then we go inside. So we're looking at all the cool stuff in the museum. They got trinkets, doodads, bombs and guns and preserved camel spiders and busts of Hitler recovered from Germany, and then the curator comes in and asks us, hey, do you guys want to hold a 700-year-old samurai sword? Me and Jake are obviously receptive to this, and what follows is, I'm just going to roll the clips.
Over. Now yank it back. Yeah, now pull that trigger for me.
This guy tells us that he'll be back in 5 minutes and that we can pick anything in the museum and he'll take it out and let us hold it, and we take him up on that offer. Here's us reloading the M1 Garand. All sorts of fucking awesome stuff, including one thing they swore us to secrecy on, and fuck me, I'm not gonna blow the cover. I like to consider the S tier something that you could drive out of your way to make a trip to on its own, and you absolutely should make a trip to the Chenault Museum. The guy told us that he wanted to make sure the museum was the best spot we visited on our road trip, and it's pretty fucking up there. I do think some things edge it out, though. You're just gonna have to keep watching and find out. After unsuccessfully trolling for the highest point in Louisiana, Driscoll Mountain, which is not impressive at all and not even marked from what we could tell, we arrive in Shreveport. Driscoll Mountain gets a fucking D tier because of course it does. It's the highest point in Louisiana. The highest point in Louisiana, the biggest lake in Saudi Arabia, the snowiest mountain in Cuba. You get the point. Tonight we're staying at this lovely bed and breakfast known as Austin Place, which is right next to the Ogilvy Weiner Mansion and owned by the same person. Now, the mansion is currently under renovations to become another bed and breakfast, but the lady was nice enough to give us a tour of it, which you're watching right now. It is a fascinating place, and the other B&B on the property ain't too shabby either.
They're probably from 19, originally a dragon-shaped staircase. They just these are the bedroom. Is the blue room over.
B tier, good stuff. Thus ends our first day with a frankly alarming lack of things done. I was kinda sweating. Was Louisiana gonna make me its bitch? We're right across the border from Texas, and we have to make it to the south end of the state by tomorrow night, or else we risk missing. The timing for this trip was very deliberate to let us get to the Rain Frog Festival, which is in the south end of the state. We had to make up some missing stops that we bypassed on the trip to Shreveport, but first we'd go around town and see the sights of Shreveport. The closed attraction bingo card. Spring Street Museum was supposed to be open, but was fucking shuttered when we got there. The Touch Street Wildlife and Art Museum had closed due to, as their website so passively aggressively puts it, lack of community support. The R.W. Norton Art Gallery has some goofy hours that we were never going to make, even though I would have loved to see the artwork. I'll put up some images and videos of the inside here and remind you that our goal here is to go to every place and do the attraction when we can. Doing a marathon of 180 sites in 9 days, we are bound to miss some, trust me. There is no possible way to do all of these without sacrificing months. I'm working out my comp sci master's degree running Dijkstra's shortest path on Mystery Shack drive distances in my head for weeks before this. I'm seeing mandalas, the matrix code is running down my screen to maximize the amount of open attractions. Unfortunately, life does just throw you a curveball sometimes too, because the Shreveport Municipal Auditorium was host to a graduation. There's no way we were getting in there, and even if we were, I wouldn't want to film it. Here's the inside of the auditorium for reference, and here is the foot traffic for the place. Unfortunately for us, one of the only two things we were able to see in Shreveport was this mural, the once-in-a-millennium moon mural. As you can probably tell, it's very, very big. 14 stories tall, 30,000 square feet, and 1,500 gallons of paint. It's one of the biggest murals in the country. It's not the biggest, in fact we'll see some direct competition down in New Orleans, but it's damn impressive. I'll give it a C, but it's like a high C. The Shreveport Waterworks Museum was a dark horse candidate because it sounds boring as hell, but it's actually cool.
There's not any water in them.
What they have here is a water processing plant with all the machinery still intact, and you can wander around between big cogs and gears and stuff. It's also free, which is fantastic for my wallet. A tier. Louisiana actually has a lot of free museums outside of New Orleans because they're publicly funded. Our next stop, the Germantown Colony Museum, is a colonial village that's also free to visit. I've seen dozens of these old-style colonials, but I have a soft spot for this kind of Oregon Trail 5th edition style housing, and being able to get up close and personal with it bumps up the quality a good bit.
Salt. But look up Bostwick, Bostwicks.
Plus, it's free! B tier. Back on our previous route, we hit the Bonnie and Clyde Ambush Museum, a museum at the site where the famous criminal murderer duo were shot to death in their iconic Ford F-150. This is just what those used to look like. The museum is one of those museums that just kind of vomits all the newspaper clippings at you.
This is me when the guys in Subway be forgetting my olives.
There's a lot of info and some artifacts, but the important one, the car, is in Las Vegas instead, which makes the whole thing feel like a burger with no meat. It's not bad, but the Bonnie and Clyde story just feels incomplete without the car. C tier.
It's keeping us safe. It's not keeping us safe. It's preventing me from filming. Why are we not going in? This is Briarwood. This is like supposed to be gated off, and you pay a fee, and there's a park ranger that lets you in. There's a wedding going on here now, so we're not gonna bother them. You see the wilderness, and we're gonna go on ahead to see some sports ball.
The Louisiana Sports Hall of Fame is a topic that neither I nor Jake really know too much about. I'm not gonna be one of those,
go sports ball, score a home run
guys, but I just never really got into sports. That's perfectly fine though, because this place has plenty of other things completely unrelated to sports. It's also got a really weird building design that was neat to see. I'm not sure if the video really does it justice. It's a fancy, strange building. I'll give it a C because I personally can't get much out of this, but I do recognize I'm just not in this skill tree. We drive for a good long while and eventually arrive at the town of Rain, the frog capital of the world. These guys export frog legs and they are all in on this. We had planned our trip around being able to attend the annual Rain Frog Festival, and we arrived a little late, but in time to see a pretty standard carnival. I was kind of disappointed by the lack of theming, but we did get some sick frog merch and try some frog legs. Which were bad. Frog legs are like wings, but more expensive and with less meat. It's not even my first time trying them, but these in particular were from the Soul Food truck selling frog legs, and it was $10 for 3 legs. Gross. I'm being negative, but we also missed a lot of the more interesting events, which I'll go ahead and play some clips of. The Frog Festival is cool, and I would feel bad if I gave it anything less than a B tier. It would probably be higher if we got to see frogs in hats ourselves, but Louisiana's fucking big. It was an absolute treat to see Rain as a whole, though. There's frog-related stuff everywhere. Remember Enterprise, Alabama, and their obsession with the boll weevil? They had boll weevil hotels, and statues, and murals, and Ronald McWeevil. In Rain, they do the same thing with frogs, and I love it.
Cemetery time. It's time for cemeteries. I sure do love cemeteries. It's a great thing the Atlas Obscura has about 700 of them.
This is a cemetery in Rain, which interrupts my thematically fitting Frog Festival transition to the third day with the most notable cemetery in a 5-mile radius. This one is on the Atlas because it's actually built west to east instead of north to south. You see, most cemeteries have their graves facing north and south, and this one does it the other way. What do you think I'm going to rate this? On day 3, we were set to meet up with our friend Chase in Baton Rouge, who would then stay the rest of the trip after Jake had to leave early. Chase is an old friend of mine who will be in the inevitable Tennessee video whenever I get that out, but this is his first proper appearance on the channel. He would also become targeted by a villain. But before that, we had a whole lot of things to do. We started off at the Tabasco Museum and Factory, where we were able to tour the grounds and see a whole bunch of silly peppers.
Ah, shit. What? The bears are driving trucks.
I didn't actually know that Tabasco was the name of a type of pepper. I always just assumed that it was the brand name, but no. I've never been a huge hot sauce guy, but trying the sample bar got me pumped enough to buy some. The scorpion pepper sauce is a bit much, but, sometimes you gotta make enemies.
Hello to the gamers. I realized that we didn't get
good video of the tasting. So here I have my Tabascos that I got from the Tabasco factory. Got some pepper jelly here. I'm not going to taste that. The only thing I'm going to taste for you guys is habanero, regular, green, and some sweet chili sauce. But I feel like you were owed a scorpion pepper sauce mukbang, so we're gonna knock this out. And we just a little bit on. And a bon voyage. Ooh. Ah, that does immediately hit you. That is quite an unpleasant spice. It's not that bad. I've definitely had worse. But like the worst ones really creep up on you. This one just like socks you right in the face. I'm giving it a big fat A tier because it's great, and also because the grounds at the factory are just gorgeous. This is part of Avery Island, which the Tabasco factory shares with another Atlas location called the Jungle Gardens. It's supposed to be this beautiful garden full of birds and wildlife that you can drive through, but unfortunately, it was not in bloom, and we saw exactly one bird. It was free with the Tabasco factory admission, so let's go, but still, see. They weren't open, but here is Lark's Acadian Village, another colonial village that functions more as a wedding venue than anything else. It's got a small museum, but we couldn't get in to check it out, so look at this neat architecture, and we're moving on. The Rip Van Winkle Gardens are a very pretty garden full of peacocks, and I like peacocks. They're great. They're not even remotely scared of humans, and they're really pretty and huge and stupid because genetically they're pretty much just chickens. The gardens themselves were unfortunately holding an event at the time, so you're not going to see much footage of them, especially because I fooled you. Rip Van Winkle Gardens isn't a location on the Atlas Obscura. Fuck do you take me for? I'm not a rube. What we actually came here for is the lake that the gardens sit in the middle of, Lake Pagner. Lake Pagner used to be a 10-foot deep tiny piece of shit lake that nobody cared about until, whoopsie doodles, somebody accidentally drilled the wrong thing and now it's huge. Buildings were swallowed up in the ensuing flood, the remains of which you can see from the gardens. The lake itself is nothing really to see, only one of the buildings is even visible above the water anymore, so D tier, but the garden is very neat. At this point we head far south to the Gulf of Mexico to check out a few sites that are a little annoying to get to. Louisiana roads are hitting us hard at this point. Our Lady of the Sea is a statue that's out near a marina in the water, and you can kind of see when the tide is low. D tier, by the way. Fort Livingston is a very cool abandoned army fort that we were supposed to be able to get into, but the Atlas doesn't note it's on the grounds of an active army fort. And listen, urban exploration is technically illegal, but there's nothing wrong with it. Just don't get cocky and don't get caught. My ass is not urban exploring in there, especially when you have to cross a river to even get to the damn thing. The Holy Mary Shrine is a little shrine on the side of a road dedicated to when an insurance salesman witnessed a miracle in the 70s. Allegedly, he was praying and witnessed the Virgin Mary descend from the heavens and decided to build this shrine about it. Given the previous run-ins with religious strangeness we've had, more on that in the Tennessee video, I was a bit disappointed, but we did get to play with this good cat. C tier. The strangeness ramped up for the next location, the Kenny Hill Sculpture Garden, which I will present without commentary.
Pillar's got chicken feet.
The story here is that this man lived on this land for 20 years and just made art the whole time. The landlord eventually kicked him out for not paying his rent, and he just left all his stuff there. While we're strolling through the sculptures, we get invited to the museum across the street where more of his stuff is displayed. This is the kind of shit I love. A weird guy with a massive creative outlet that he just never explains. It's going in the S tier for me. At this point, we start to head back to Baton Rouge, but not before dropping by the Bayou Corn sinkhole, which is currently inaccessible.
We fucking did it again.
Anyway, here's Chase, billionaire playboy, and most close to being shoddy out of the gang. We head over to the first restaurant on the list, Elsie's Plate and Pie, which is a restaurant that serves pie, but not just any pie. They do savory pies, sweet pies, apple pies, tomato pies, pot pies, lemon pies, all sorts of pies. It is fantastic. I got the tomato pie, Jake got some chicken pot pie, Chase got a seafood pie, and all three were 10 out of 10. With the desserts coming in just as good because it's a pie restaurant, and they're obviously amazing.
Hey there, YouTube. You want some pie? Here it comes.
I don't like this.
There you go, baby girl.
I'm gonna go home.
This is uncomfortable.
I'm gonna go home.
S tier, God tier, Baton Rouge, I love you. Baton Rouge, I hate you. Today we were set to go all over the lower half of the state, cleaning up some spots we missed and just generally attacking this little L curve in the middle. Baton Rouge tried its best to keep that from happening. Parking in cities is always a shit show, but in Baton Rouge in particular, we had to park near the Capitol building on a day that the legislature was meeting. And they don't have specific parking spots for those guys. Every parking spot for miles around was tucked into by local representatives, and us fools were unable to get one for the longest time. It didn't wind up mattering too much because the Louisiana Old State Capitol was closed for renovations, and the Capitol Park Museum, where the Confederate submarine is held, is just plain old closed. We did get to see this sick statue of Oliver Pollock, though. That's cool, I guess. See? He's the guy who made the dollar sign, and you wouldn't know it from the statue. One thing we did get to see is Mike the tiger owned by Louisiana State University as their mascot. There have been 6 or 7 of them, and unlike the Auburn Eagles, which we were so unceremoniously denied access to, you can go visit him. He was very sleepy when we saw him. I'm not gonna wake him up, he's a tiger. B tier. After that, we head south to see the National Hansen's Disease Museum, which, for those unaware, is leprosy. On a military base that we had to show ID to get into is a museum that details the base's history as a leprosy hospital. It's a very well put together museum, and there's a lot more to the story of the former hospital than I would have guessed. It's also just a beautiful location. If my limbs were rotting off, I'd at least be happy with the feng shui. I'm gonna give it a B. After this, we head up north to search for two plaques on the side of the road. One of them commemorates the disputed domain of West Florida, which used to be claimed over the state of Louisiana, but disputed between the colonial powers at the time. The other commemorates a day-long ceasefire during the Civil War. See, one of those Civil War commanders, Lieutenant Commander Hart, had a fever so strong that he went insane and ran out during a battle and blew his own head off. Because Hart was a high-ranking Mason and the Brotherhood had a strong presence on both sides of the war, they flew a white flag to hold a service for him. Once a year, the local Civil War reenactors hold a funeral for Hart, but we weren't there for that, so we have the plaques. You may have noticed that this is not at all related to the actual content of the plaques on screen. I don't know what to tell you. The Atlas pointed us to these two, and they're never wrong on that website. Time for more closed stuff. The Cat Island bald cypress is the oldest tree in the world or something, and we couldn't get to it because the road to the wildlife reserve it was on was flooded. Fun. There's also the Lego Livingston Observatory, which is a private gravitational wave detector Dexter's Labs Science Center not open to the public. It's on the Atlas presumably because of the monthly science expos they hold on the first Saturday of every month. We couldn't get in, we already spent the timing on frogs. So the next one is fun. The Angola prison is the largest maximum security prison in the country, and once a year they hold a fun little rodeo for the prisoners. That's right, felons may not be allowed to vote in America, but they sure can cattle wrangle. Attendance and participation is optional. This isn't like gladiatorial combat, though the ethics of giving cash prizes to prisoners for risking their lives with enraged bulls is a little questionable. Still, this rodeo and other notable prison shenanigans are commemorated in a museum on site, which we got a good look at.
Film it, get this sign, and then point it at me.
I'm not exactly sure how to feel about it because fuck prison wardens, but also it's just goofy enough to touch my soul, and I don't think anyone has gotten seriously hurt doing it. Like, having a big communal activity in the prison is purely a good thing for rehabilitation, and studies will show that, but it's a bit much. Still, it's an interesting bit of Americana, and the museum is a B tier. Next up, we had a plantation house to visit. I'm not a fan of visiting plantation houses, so when we arrived and it was closed for some inexplicable reason, I was relieved. Unfortunately,
the Nottoway plantation in White Castle has been declared a total loss after a massive fire yesterday afternoon. Officials are now working.
Okay, it wasn't the same plantation, but it did happen on the same day in the same area, so we were very fucking confused. Like, we were a few miles away from being suspects in an arson, which is hilarious to imagine. The crazy thing is, this wouldn't even be the worst incident of property damage on the trip. Frenier Cemetery we didn't manage to get access to, it's only available through a tour and I didn't find out about that until it was too late, but I'll get you some footage of the place. It's a cemetery with a lot of voodoo history, but it is a cemetery. The Manchac Swamp Bridge is a bridge that you can drive across. Here's me driving across it. D tier. And we ended the day at the famous Teddy's Juke Joint. I love this kind of club where it's just a shit ton of knickknacks on the walls and a crazy old guy running the place. We were here kinda early, so we were the only ones there, but I'll get some footage of the place during a busy night. I felt kinda bad because we wandered into this place at like 5 p.m. and Teddy gets up, audibly pops his back, and walks to the DJ stand to start mixing for 3 people who order a single light beer each. I do really like this place though. I'm giving it a B, but if we were there during a good show, I could see that bumping up. Thus would end the tutorial for our trip. Tomorrow we ventured into hell itself. The hardest part of any of these trips is always the cities. In Alabama, our roughest time was Birmingham. Mississippi didn't really have any big cities, and Tennessee, though unfinished at time of writing, gave us a lot of headache with Memphis and Nashville. Nashville had about 40 entries, and getting to all of them was a nightmare, even though we did it over the course of 4 days. That's 10 locations a day, which is a lot. New Orleans has over 90. We had 5 days to cover New Orleans, and I'm just gonna say right now, even if something did not go horribly wrong, this would have been a fucking horror show either way. New Orleans is the biggest city we've ever tackled, and the biggest city we will ever tackle. It would be one thing if it just had a lot of locations, but the roads are fucked up from years of hurricanes, and the road layouts are genuinely incomprehensible. Look at this shit. A good section of the city is just flat out undrivable, so you have to walk it like a Kaizo Mario stage where the saw blades are people trying to shine your shoes for $40. That being said, we did have a handful of areas before New Orleans on our way in. The first of these, Bayou Sarah Farms, is not open to the public, but it is a cheese farm. I don't really know why that's here, but we went and looked at the goats. They were nice. This is a quick editor's note after the fact. So those goats that we saw were not actually involved with a farm. Bayou Sarah Farms is a water buffalo cheese farm. And we didn't see any water buffalo, but that's what they do. And I had forgotten that. The other one I'm kind of upset about being closed. This is the Kentwood Historical and Cultural Museum, dedicated to all the famous people who were born in the town of Kentwood, Louisiana. That is, it's dedicated to Britney Spears, and that's about it. It looks really silly. It's my favorite kind of museum, where it's run out of someone's house, but this place had not been touched for some time when we arrived. It was dire. Fortunately, our luck turned up as we approached our next stop. In the town of Abita Springs, you may stumble across a strange shack in the middle of a section of forest. This is the Abita Mystery House, and it is magical.
Nobody would ever remember.
Are you gonna put your hand in the trained spider box?
What?
I'm not, but you go right ahead.
What is that?
I don't know. I think you put your hand in and you press meat or met. No, press meat. It's basically the Mystery Shack from Gravity Falls, but in real life. The first thing I hear upon entering the house is, "Are you guys here because of Atlas Obscura?" And boy, it was all uphill from there. The guy gives us a handful of quarters to play his homemade arcade machines littered throughout the house, and they're insane?
I'm Clisco, the dancing clown, push up
Am I being loud? It's an electronic marionette.
We're walking past fortune-telling machines and fucked up evil taxidermy. There's a giant fish with a gator's head on it that is somehow considered under construction. It is absolutely my favorite kind of destination on these trips, not just because there was a very polite and lovely cat to greet us. I could go on and on for hours about this place, but this kind of folk art is what I live for.
Oh Lord, why?
I'm scared to push that button.
The deck's quarters. You want to see the worst day of your life?
What? McDonald's fries are outlawed. To be honest, I'm just writing as much as I can to show you as much of the footage as I can. It's an S tier, obviously. Not only is it an S tier, but it's a broodmother S tier, because this place actually involved 2 other locations further down on the list, which are also getting S tiers. God damn. Let's speed through a few of these because they're pretty inconsequential. Seven Sisters Oak, it's a fancy tree that's on private property that we could just barely get a glimpse of. D tier. Old Lady of the Lake Oak, it's a very fancy tree that you can actually approach. It's very cool looking, and for a tree, it's pretty great. But it's still just a tree and gets a C tier. Dewdrop Inn Jazz and Social Hall, it's an event hall that was cordoned off by police tape when we got there. Closed? Hey. What punishment do you give someone arrested at Jazz Hall? Unfortunately, they're gonna swing. Fuck you, it was good. What you're seeing right now is our way into New Orleans, the Lake Pontchartrain Causeway. It's listed on the atlas because it's the longest bridge over water in the world, and I think you can tell from the footage just how trippy this thing is to drive on. I was mean to the Manchac Swamp Bridge because this bridge exists and is way better. Honestly, I'm gonna give it an A. And with that, we are in New Orleans. We're staying at a hotel in the French Quarter called the Wyndham Garden Baronne Plaza, an expensive hotel due to its location. It's prime real estate, $200 a night. Why am I telling you this? Chekhov's gun, get foreshadowed on, idiot. We're not in the business of slowing down while we still have energy, so we park in the garage and get out to hit up the streets of the French Quarter. We've got a lot to do, and today our main objective is to get absolutely turned up. I got a whole bunch of quickies here for you because the atlas for New Orleans is a little funky. The Oyster Sidewalk is a sidewalk with oyster shell patterns on it next to an oyster bar. D tier, I don't even like oysters. This here is the surviving facade of the former United Fruit Company building, the guys who did all the coups for the banana trade. This one gets a C tier solely because I find it very amusing that not only does a Google review page exist for the United Fruit Company building, but it's been review bombed. New Orleans street tiles, this is not worthy of being considered an Atlas Obscura location because they're literally on every street in the city. D tier. The cats of Jackson Square, unfortunately we were unable to see these kitties that allegedly come out at night in Jackson Square. But I did see a lot of people smoking crack. Birthplace of Dixie plaque, it's whatever, D tier, it's literally on the side of a Walgreens. The Lawlery Mansion, you're not allowed inside of this place, and if you stay too long outside of it, the owners will come outside and stare at you until you go away. This is a historically relevant location because Madame Lawlery was a bit of an evil demon from hell, but I had enough of her from American Horror Story, thanks. F tier. Ignatius J. Riley is a character from the book The Confederacy of Dunces, and this is an American take on Don Quixote. I haven't read it, but we did see his statue, and I thought it was just one of those painted guys for way too long. C tier. Lastly on our speed round is the Gates of Guinea, a location relevant to voodoo in which 7 gates to the underworld exist all around New Orleans that change place on specific holidays. You know, kind of like Toad Road in Pennsylvania? Wrong, there's actually no locations of the gates. This is the first and I believe the only location on the atlas that does not even fucking exist. I don't want to insult the voodoo practitioners out there because it's a very real religion, so please understand that the F tier here is solely for whatever Poindexter submitted this to the list. Right, let's get to the real shit. The Napoleon House is a restaurant themed around the late, great Napoleon Bonaparte that dates back to 1914, which, for New Orleans, is kind of young, actually. They're known for their top-class sandwiches, and I decided to try the iconic New Orleans muffaletta. This sandwich owns. It's got this nice, rich, savory flavor from the meat and cheese cut through by the sharp olive tang, and the bread is fantastic. I also enjoy sandwiches you have to order a fourth of because the real thing is bigger than my head. I'm giving it an A because food is really great when the hungry is the vibe. From there we went down to Bourbon Street and started our bar crawl. The first is the Lafitte Blacksmith Shop Bar, which I think all of us got some concoction of Red Bull and liquor from. I'd actually never been to Bourbon Street before, despite having been to New Orleans several times. My parents always made me cover my eyes when I walked past it. I was alarmed to find that it's just bars. There's no titty twisters here, it's mainly just bars and drunk people. Blacksmith Shop has cool theming, but my drink was super watered down and not very good for the price, so I'm handing it the C tier. Café Lafitte in Exile is the oldest gay bar in America, but you could have fooled me. There's not really much decor here that's gay, and it's pretty tiny. New Orleans has a rich history involved in the LGBT movement, but the history of the building itself is much more rooted in petty squabbling. See, the previous location, Lafitte's Blacksmith Shop, used to be the gay bar and also themed around the iconic pirate John Lafitte's blacksmith business, which was ran out of the same location. In the 50s, the gay bar gets forced to move down to the other end of the street, and the new Lafitte's opens up called Lafitte's in Exile, exactly 1 block down from the old one. There's also apparently a ghost called Mr. Bubbles that slaps ass in the bar. I'm giving it the B tier for the storied history and slightly cheaper drinks than the homophobic Lafitte's. We headed over to Marie Laveau's House of Voodoo, which doesn't allow filming, but I'll put some pictures of the inside here. It's a very cool voodoo shop, but as those typically go, things are very expensive inside, and I'm not a voodoo practitioner. I also don't think the people who believe in voodoo actually shop here. It feels like it's the touristy voodoo, hence being on Bourbon Street. B tier. Next up is Jean Lafitte's Old Absinthe House, another bar and another Jean Lafitte sighting. This time it's dedicated to the old world spirit absinthe. See, absinthe used to be a competitor to wine, made with cheaper ingredients. It won over the French working class in the late 1800s before being banned in 1915 due to being made with toxic chemicals. It's alcohol, that's the point, you fucking goober. What does it taste like, you may ask? Well, see, here's where I have a bit of a disagreement with my friends. They point out the subtle licorice notes and herbal aromas, and I think it tastes like a Nintendo Switch cartridge. I can't stand it, but I do really like that this place exists, so I'll settle for C tier. The Musical Legends Park is a park with a whole bunch of cool statues and a nice cafe where we bought some beignets, the iconic New Orleans donut that I am sure you are aware of. While we were there, a jazz band actually started playing, and yeah, this place is really nice. Also, on the way there, we encountered a bouncer outside the Barely Legal Girls Club who sounded exactly like Carlton Banks and invited us in with the line, "You young boys want any pussy this evening?" Anyway, the park is B tier. Our next bar is another highlight, though we were certainly underdressed for the occasion. The Carousel Bar features high-quality cocktails in a rotating circular bar, which you can kinda see move in this video footage. I got some champagne with candied hibiscus, and I can't remember what the others got because my alcohol tolerance was minimized at this point and I was starting to have what the professionals refer to as conniptions. I'm gonna give it the B. The drink was really good. The final bar of the night is the Sazerac Bar, and it is bumpin'. The drinks were great. The hotel it's in is straight out of the roaring 20s. I loved it. It was also right next to the hotel, so after we finished our cocktails, we could stumble back and 4 hours. 4 hours we left this car alone to the elements of New Orleans. Chase's car had, in the 4 hours we had been gone, had its tires slashed, its windows smashed open, its steering column removed and attempted to be hot-wired. This is all inside the parking garage, which, by the way, was very obviously a renovated basement of the hotel with pillars in the middle of half the parking spaces. We asked the management, and what they say is, oh yeah, the door to the parking garage doesn't close all the way. They probably got in that way. Alright. This hotel had recently gotten a new manager, so I can't give him too much flack, but I can say that our hotel experience was fucking horrible. The fridge in the hotel was set to 62 degrees with no way to change it. There was no housekeeping the entire time we were there. They couldn't check me in at first because the internet for the whole building kept going down, and worst of all, there were 3 employees for the entire hotel. I'm not a Yelp reviewer, but it was so difficult not to blast this bitch with the 1 star it deserved. $200 a night, and the fucking door to the parking garage doesn't close. $200 a night, and you can't get new bed sheets. You just have to raw dog your own sweat and piss and shit for 5 nights at Frederic's. It was going to be $100 each vehicle to park here for 5 days, but thankfully they waived that once our windows got fucking smashed. We had to adjust. It is at this time that I would like to confess to a terrible lie. See, despite our rule being that we have to go to each location and, when applicable, do the thing there, we weren't able to keep that promise on this trip. The original plan was to send Chase out on some side quests to cover the things we missed, but as you can see, that was no longer an option. And because of that, and because of some bad planning on my part, we missed a grand total of 19 locations. A lot of these were chosen to be excluded because they weren't open to the public to begin with, but much as the filmmakers under the Dogma 95 movement had to declare their failures at the start of the film, I declare my failures now. 19 is a very small percentage of the overall amount of places, so I don't feel too bad, but I'm going to run down the list here and show you just a little bit of what could have been. Wolf Rock Cave is the only cave in Louisiana, and it was either this or the Frog Festival. I was actually kind of excited for this one because Tennessee has so many goddamn cave tours that a cave just being open to walk into blew my mind. Bilbo Cemetery was a cemetery that was too out of the way to get to without our Chase side quests. It's a cemetery, and I don't feel bad about skipping it. Fred's Lounge is a music venue that we couldn't access during open hours because of the car trouble. It's considered the Kazan music capital of the world by themselves and has been open for 75 years. Another musical spot, the Swamp Pop Museum, tells the tale of the genre of swamp pop, and once again, this one was because of car trouble. Rock Falls is a trail leading to Louisiana's biggest waterfall, and look at it. Come on now, am I a waterfall size queen? This is pathetic. The birthplace of Buddy Guy is a shack on the side of the road that looks completely abandoned, and the Jerry Lee Lewis Museum is a shack on the side of the road that even the Atlas says is completely abandoned, even though according to Facebook it's not. In New Orleans itself, we didn't manage to find any of the tiny tombs, which are miniatures scattered throughout the city, because the person who does them is now dead and the online map to them is gone, and so are most of the tombs. We didn't go to the Museum of the American Cocktail because it's since been subsumed into a bigger, different museum and allegedly is now just a single wall of cocktail ingredients. You used to get to taste them, you don't get that anymore. The Free People of Color Museum we also didn't see on account of it having exactly 2 hours a week when it's open, at 11 on Friday and 1 on Saturday. Fort St. Philip and Fort Proctor are both far out army forts that we would have had to boat across open ocean to reach. I had a raft but was not capable of rowing 3 people across the flooded Mississippi River to get to these abandoned army bases. The ruins of Fort Macomb are also here for the same sort of reason. Speaking of abandoned locations, because of the car trouble we nixed all urbex spots in New Orleans, so the abandoned Jazzland, not happening. Old Spanish Fort, get out of here. Civil Defense Control Center, it's since been welded shut, so even if we wanted to, we couldn't. Fisherman's Castle on the Irish Bayou is a funny looking castle on the Irish Bayou. We didn't get to go out here because it's private property and all you can do is look at it, so look at it. Bonfires on the levee for Papa Noel is listed on the atlas, but it's an event which happens at Christmas time and that didn't line up with the frogs, so... Lastly, we're missing the Lakefront Airport, which is this cute little Art Deco airport that looks cool, but again, it was really far out and I was banging on the car for this one. So yeah, I'm a fraud. I clickbaited you, and we didn't even actually go to every Atlas Obscura location in Louisiana. Blame these fuckers. Despite being the victims of a crime, we had an opportunity in the morning to visit St. Louis Cemetery No. 1. This is the big famous cemetery in New Orleans, so famous that you have to book a tour to go through if you aren't a family of one of the deceased because of vandalism. Fun. This is actually the one cool cemetery on the trip because New Orleans has these very pretty above-ground graves due to ground being swamp. You also get to see the two iconic graves, one of Marie Laveau, the Voodoo Queen, whose grave is subject to the most vandalism because apparently if you knock on her grave, she'll grant you your wish. Nicolas Cage is also buried here, or at least he will be soon on August 21st, 2027 at 8:45 a.m. I think it's a pretty cool place and worth the tour if you're in New Orleans, so I'm giving it the A. The Museum of Death unfortunately does not allow filming outside of its gift shop, but we do have some pretty cool specimens in that. Inside the museum proper, you can see things like Jack Kevorkian's Funny Machine and Shrunken Heads and stuff from Charles Manson. Basically anything true crime podcasters would like, they got it. There's also a theater in the back playing an endless loop of different Mondo films. Awesome, I got to see a guy get his head blown off before lunch. I'm giving it a C because the museum is very small for the admission price. $20 a head and you have 3 rooms? Come on. Dookie Chase's restaurant is a weird place. It's built like this prim and proper French restaurant, but it serves pretty normal food. Chase got this weird deconstructed po' boy and I got their signature pasta dish. I'm not really sure what the vibe is here because the menu screams Cajun food, but then the interior is this glitzy piano bar with tablecloths and it feels like the kind of place you can ring a little bell and the waiter comes and you say, "Garçon, there is a fly in my soup." See? The food was also just not that good. The general area we're in now is called Storyville, which used to be the red light district of New Orleans, but now it's just kind of the whole city, not gonna lie. This area is on the Atlas, so it's getting a D because why is it on the Atlas? Same for the General Laundry building, a decommissioned old building with an Art Deco facade. It's very cool to look at, but you can't go in even if you want to break the law because it's sealed up tight. D tier. The Tomb of the Unknown Slave is a monument to the victims of American slavery, and it's a very strong image that's unceremoniously placed, but very powerful. We don't rate these. This here is the Ferry Playhouse, a very important location for LGBT rights and the final resting place of the cremated remains of several important figures in the movement for rights. Once again, I'm not putting this on a tier list.
Louisiana locations are weird ass hours. They all do. They all be like that and shit. Next is the Degas house, and that will also be drive-by.
We've also got, in the general area, the home of Edgar Degas, which you may be wondering, oh, Goat, why didn't you go in and tour the place? Well, it's actually a bed and breakfast, and we were locked into the worst hotel of all times, so we obviously couldn't stay the night here, even though we totally should have. The community book center was funny because it's a very black-owned business in a very black-owned part of town, and the 3 of us walk up to it and it's just, you got the murals, the Caribbean food, and the community bookstore where we are very noticeably out of our element. The owners asked us, hey, are you in a band? Because the only time we get a bunch of white boys in here is if they're in a band. We didn't buy anything, but this place is cool and I'm giving it a B. Owners were very friendly and their selection is very cool, but I did not have the strength in me to purchase a copy of Settlers, the Mythology of the White Proletariat. Trem's Petite Jazz Museum is a museum dedicated to the jazz of New Orleans, and when they say petite, they mean petite. 2 rooms, I'm pretty sure this is someone's house. It's free though, and the owner will play you some of the tracks he has if you ask. I'm not going to put it in for copyright reasons, but this is a very cool museum. I'm giving it a B. After we hit those locations, we headed back to the hotel to deal with that. Then we went to dinner. Antoine's is a fancy French restaurant in the French Quarter, and I love it. This place just serves some of the goddamn finest food you'll find in New Orleans. I got some fish, the boys got whatever is on the screen right now, and we finished off the night with Antoine's signature Baked Alaska. Baked Alaska is a dessert that up until that moment was a gimmick in my head.
It's ice cream, but it's baked. Ooh.
No, it's actually fucking incredible. It's one of the best things I've ever eaten in my life, and I have no idea how they did it. Look at this magnificent monstrosity. We put away the whole thing. It's got this gooey, silky cake with a meringue crust with little bursts of flavor from all the crackling on top of it, all served on a bed of soft, homemade real vanilla bean ice cream. S tier. Almost the best restaurant on the tour. On the 7th day, we dove headfirst into an aspect of New Orleans culture I guarantee you've never heard of, but first we have to check in on the son of the owner of the Abita Mystery House at the attraction known as Escape My Room. Escape My Room is the most unique escape room I've ever done, because when you make your appointment, the guy will greet you completely in character and then some. This is a renovated old New Orleans mansion built to have hidden walls and contraptions all over it. To be honest, it's difficult to tell where the escape room ends and the rest of the house begins. It's all built like a Resident Evil map. I can't show you the inside of the room itself, but we did escape, and I gotta give it big props. Most escape rooms are like kinda chintzy bowling alley attractions, but the creativity and commitment to the bit here is something else. Combine that with knickknacks from the Mystery House, and it gets an S. The most recent addition at the time of trip for the Atlas was our lunch stop, Dough Winner's Vietnamese Bakery, which serves up pastries and sandwiches with that South Asian spice. I had to get the banh mi, which was fucking massive by the way, and we tried their pastries in various shapes and forms. I had a cookie, which was soft and squishy the way I like them. It's a real nice bakery, and the best part is it's not in New Orleans, B tier. How about another round of closed locations before we tackle the big ones? Today we had appointments for 2 specific locales, but before then we wanted to hit more of the east side. The St. Rose Chapel is a chapel inside of a graveyard that you can see here. It's supposed to not be closed at any time the graveyard is open, which is a lie. Music Box Village is a music venue that we couldn't get access to because nobody was scheduled to play there, and I figure Kermit Trem's Mother-in-Law Lounge was shuttered for about the same reasons, despite the hours saying it should have been open. For this next one I need to set the scene a little bit. The House of Dance and Feathers is a museum ran out of someone's home dedicated to the Skull and Bones gangs of New Orleans and the Mardi Gras Indians. In 2019, the original owner died, but his wife would later take up the mantle of curator for him in 2022. Unfortunately, the website points you to old contact information, and so does the Facebook page, so I had no idea how to actually get in touch with this lady until Google's AI search thing offered it to me with no source. I called the number, and there she is. I hate to say I gotta hand it to the AI, but whatever dowsing ritual they used to find this phone number worked out. I always love museums that are ran out of someone's house. Gives a real personal feeling to everything. This isn't even the only one we'll be visiting today. Going is free, but you're not going to take a tour of a widow's museum in her backyard without buying the book, are you? Come on. This place is really cool. The Mardi Gras Indians are part of the celebration each year and create these massive costumes out of beads and feathers. The rules go that they can only use one costume for 1 year, and then it's time to get started on the next one. Outside of that, the museum also commemorates the Second Line Dancers, a series of groups who used to be the gangs of New Orleans that now perform weekly dances down the streets of the city. There's also the Skull and Bones gangs, who have these gnarly skeleton costumes and come out on Mardi Gras morning to parade and scare the kids. It's an incredible slice of New Orleans culture that you won't hear outside the city, and the previous owner, Ronald Lewis, was involved in all of them. He was such an important figure in the New Orleans dance scene that he's commemorated with a mural on several buildings, including our next stop. This place is A tier, by the way. If you wanted more Indians, here they are at the Backstreet Cultural Museum. What we saw here was mostly a repeat of what we saw at the House of Dance and Feathers, but with more gorgeous costumes to look at. There's this one made out of human hair, this one from an iconic Mardi Gras local celebrity that does these collage-style costumes, and we got more details on how the gangs eventually turned into the dancing groups. The Mardi Gras Indian gangs used to be violent and, gangs until they were united by a grand leader, and that sounds straight out of the plot to a Yakuza game. Backstreet Museum gets a B because it's kind of expensive for what amounts to 3 rooms, but it is a cool place. Ready for some quickies? Congo Square is a park in New Orleans with a rich history in the jazz scene. This is the spot you'd be playing when you finally made it in New Orleans. Unfortunately, nobody was playing at the time, but I'm not going to rate it because it's historically relevant. These wooden quilt doors are from around the Trem neighborhood in New Orleans and are salvaged from the debris from Hurricane Katrina. They're cool, but also on people's houses, so maybe just drive by them. D tier. If you like houses, there's more in your future. And they all get a D tier because it's really weird that the Atlas can just list someone's home address as a travel location, even if the architecture is unique. The steamboat houses of New Orleans are very unique buildings shaped like steamboats, and the float house is honestly not even remarkable, but it is built to float on water when the place floods after a hurricane, which seems like what you want your house to not do, but hey, I don't live in the bayou. Lastly, in the D tier, we have the Cypress Ghost Swamp, which is a patch of grass where a swamp used to be. Here is a powerful monument to the AIDS epidemic in New Orleans. Once again, this is a city with a rich LGBT history and community, so they were hit hard by the virus and the government's intentional non-action towards it. How about some folk art? This right here is Dr. Bob's folk art studio, who is responsible for the iconic catchphrase, "Be nice or leave." You've definitely seen his work around before, even at the House of Dance and Feathers if you had a keen eye. And this is the spot where you can buy your own artwork. Folk art is one of my favorite things, and Dr. Bob is like the Michael Jackson of that scene in New Orleans. Not in that way. It's an A, and I would have bought something here if not for the Hidden South Confessional. This is a thrift shop filled to the brim with stuff. It's good stuff. Fantastic stuff. The owner's story is that he sold all his material possessions and went on the road for years, only to come back and open up this shop where he sells everything weird and wonderful. There were so many things I saw that are just fucking great here, but the one I ended up settling on was this folk art sword made from a bike chain. Look at this bad boy. I can't even put in all the footage I would like to here because there was legitimately something everywhere you looked. S tier. In more East End artwork, this is the B Mike Studio BE, a walkthrough exhibit of one of the most prolific artists of New Orleans, and I feel like it would be best to just present this without comment. I think it's a fantastic studio, and the works are something special. I was not brave enough to go play on the driving while black arcade machine, though. I'm giving it the S too. Our last stop in this folk art frenzy was the Bywater Museum of Unnatural History, which once again is in someone's house. This museum displays dioramas from a competition they hold each year, and the dioramas are fantastic. I am unsure of what all I can show here. There's a lot of cocks and pussies and dildos, and you know one of these is just an anatomical model of a vagina using Faygo bottle parts. Am I a sucker for weird art? I think I am. I think I'm an easy mark, and it just feels good to see creativity like this. A tier. Our last stop in the East End was this plant shop called We Bite, and they're not kidding. This place sells specifically carnivorous plants only. You've got your fly traps, pitchers, all sorts of very difficult to take care of critters. I remember I had one of these when I was a kid and it died in like 2 days. They're very particular about soil acidity and stuff like that. I also don't think I ever fed it. B tier. We have 2 spots in Audubon Park to talk about. One is this labyrinth that isn't really hard to traverse and isn't worth talking about too much. And the other is this tree. This tree is called the Tree of Life, and what's notable about this is it hangs very close to the giraffe exhibit of a nearby zoo. So people climb up the tree to try and say hello to the giraffes and pet them, which apparently is not considered a problem? What a strange place. C. After a long and fruitful day, though, we knocked out with some iconic New Orleans snowballs, which are snow cones by another name. This is Hanson's Snow Blizz, an old spot in the Garden District that's been dishing out these bad boys for decades. I have sensitive teeth, so my enjoyment of snow cones is through pain and suffering, but these were still quite enjoyable. There's so many flavors and mixes. I was tempted to get the sweet tea flavor, but I wound up going with strawberry cream, which tastes like a milkshake. Here's the guys making it using these Squidward torture machine ass ice shavers. A tier. And we went back to the hotel to end our 7th day in Louisiana. It was Jake's final day because he would be taking the train tomorrow morning to return home from work, leaving me, Chase, and a slash tire. We are tired. We are out of it. Early in the morning, we ferry Jake to the train station to board just in the nick of time, and he's confused because he doesn't know that trains don't have TSA or anything like that. You just get on. After that, we take a look at the next location, the murals in the train station. I guess it's more like pointing at the train stations as a whole because it is historical and the murals are definitely neat, but Amtrak is not, and it kind of drags the vibe down. You've got this very pretty and historically important terminal for a warped train looking shitbox that derails every 2 months, C tier. After this, we've got to head up north to do some car business and then hit our cemetery lineup. You thought you were grave-pilled before, you've not seen anything yet. Boom, Metairie Cemetery, biggest one in New Orleans. It's pretty impressive, not gonna lie. We've got 2 more spots inside the cemetery, and those are the Rice Family Mausoleum, the family tomb of Anne Rice, who wrote Interview with a Vampire and other books, and the Moriarty Monument, built as a personal fuck you by the husband of the wife buried here because his wife was mistreated in life by the New Orleans elites, and now they get to enjoy her having the tallest grave in the site.
I wonder who's buried there. The god of elks. Oh.
The whole Metairie Cemetery is pretty cool to drive through, and there's tons of mausoleums I didn't even mention or film. This place is massive. I'm giving it a B tier, which for how many cemeteries we've been through is a goddamn miracle. The other ones will not be so lucky. Oddfellows Rest is closed to the public cemetery from the Oddfellows Society, the same guys who got me all confused in Mississippi. Closed, but here's what we can see of the inside. Holt Cemetery, kinda stinks. It's very, very poorly kept and notable for being the only underground gravesite I've ever personally seen in New Orleans, but, look at it. Somebody needs to come touch these boys up. The ghosts here are gonna be restless. This is a place where the Potters of New Orleans were buried, and burial here is actually free if you dig it up yourself. There's some cool folk artsy graves buried in here with PVC pipe and wires, but there's also just a lot of trash. I think this could be a really cool site, but as it stands, I'm giving it the D tier. Around a big old park that houses the New Orleans Art Museum lie our next handful of areas. We've got another fancy tree in the park, which gets a C, and arguably even fancier tree that was cordoned off because it was on the grounds of a music festival that was setting up that day. Here's some pictures. There's also the oldest fire hydrant in New Orleans, proper noun, all caps when you spell its name. Why does this have a Google Maps site? Oh yeah, there's also the Luling Mansion, a private property that's of historical significance and was under renovation at the time. Womp. The next 2 are much better. The New Orleans Train Garden is a site in the city park that has a whole lot of model trains. Now, we weren't able to see the small trains, but the big one was on full display. They got a train running through the whole park, and that's pretty cool. You can even see it going by from the Walda and Sidney Bestoff Sculpture Garden, a gorgeous section of the park full of abstract sculptures. It's free to walk through, and some of these artworks are really cool, not to mention the garden they're built in is real ornate. I'd give this a solid A, definitely worth a trip to see, and it's right next to the art museum. For lunch, we swung on by my favorite restaurant of the trip, period, Queen Trini Liza. This is a Trinidadian restaurant run by one lady who started selling her food after it turned out everyone was just coming to her shop to eat whatever she was cooking, and boy can you tell. I was in luck because they were cooking up oxtails today, something I'd never tried before but was eager to, and oh man. This food was fucking incredible. The spiced spinach is bursting with flavor, the mac and cheese is just right, and the oxtails were fall off the bone tender, you didn't even have to chew them. Everyone there was so friendly, and we actually got there at the tail end of a birthday party they were hosting for one of their long-term regulars. Absolutely go here if you go to New Orleans. I know Caribbean food isn't what the city's known for, but you can't go wrong at Queen Trini Liza. S tier. Some more car shenanigans later, and we're back in the French Quarter. We got some stops left here, a lot actually, and we'll start with these beautiful, gorgeous lamps. If you've been paying attention during our previous French Quarter footage, you might have noticed these gas lamps all around the place. They actually come from here, the Bevelo Gaslight Company, who actually let you walk through and check out their wares, and a light-making studio with a little free museum. There's a blacksmith? Lightsmith? There's a fella making these on one side and a wall covered over in tons of gas lights. It's not too interesting, but it's free and neat, so I'll give it a C. Moving up, we have the New Orleans Pharmacy Museum, dedicated to all sorts of quack medicine and remedies from the olden days. This one's pretty cool. You get to see leech-sucking devices, tinctures of Eye of Newt and whatnot. Some of it is actual medicinal history, like old-time syringes that are big and scary, but a lot of it is cocaine by any other name. B tier. A tiny gallery off Bourbon Street is home to the Art of Dr. Seuss, a place where you can buy Dr. Seuss originals for an exorbitant amount, as that would imply. Kind of funny to see some of the prints on sale here with boobs and butts. You can also buy sculptures of his critters' mounted heads, which were the highlight of the gallery for me. It's very small, but to just poke your head in is a good time, so be. The next location is the St. Louis Cathedral and its special pulpit, which is shaped like a scallop shell. This is one of the oldest pulpits in America and is noticeable because it's shaped like a scallop shell. It is a very nice looking church and a very old church, so if that's your thing, then bam, slam dunk, but I've seen so many churches that this is just numb to me. Doesn't mean it's not technically impressive though, so we'll give it the C. And the scallop shell pulpit, also a C from where it came from. Something I'm sort of noticing about New Orleans is the abundance of small personal stores, which is really unusual even in big American cities. A bookstore this small could not survive outside of New Orleans' very specific culture and architecture. This is Faulkner House Books, a teeny tiny bookstore run by one lady. She's got a lot of the classics, and I'm not going to pretend I knew what she was talking about in regards to different prints of books, but Chase seemed impressed, so I'm giving it a B. The MS Rao Antique Shop is much more impressive because it's not an antique shop, it's an insane show of wealth. I was told to stop filming pretty early on here, so unfortunately I don't have footage of the coolest things, but I can find them on the YouTube page for the gallery, which showcases the more animated aspects of it. They've got self-playing violins, accordions, pianos, insane globe guys, samurai outfits, a painting by Frank Sinatra, a painting by fucking Winston Churchill. This is just in a normal-looking building in New Orleans with basically no security. What a fucking place. The spectacle of it all is really unmatched, even by other galleries in the middle of nowhere I've seen. I'm giving it the A. Another place I was told to stop filming at was the Dark Matter Artisan Collective, an occult shop full of taxidermy rabbits with bits sewn onto them and preserved snakes in glass jars. I'll try and find some photos online to supplement, but it is a pretty cool store. I am not really sure how much I'll be able to show here because there is some gore and I'm not entirely sure how much I'll really find, but it's an occult store. You know the vibe if you've ever been to an occult store. There's cool stuff, but this doesn't really go above a normal Wiccan shop for me. Finally, we hit the Voodoo Center of New Orleans, or at least one of them, a historic museum with lots of voodoo trinkets. This is probably one of the places where everything is so dense I should present it without comment, so here you go. Boy, oh boy, I do not want to be cursed. Let's give that an A to be safe, huh? Lastly for the day, we had to get into the seance room at Muriel's Jackson Square, but for the life of us, we couldn't actually get into the room. This place is a fucking maze, and the entire second floor was occupied at the time, so we had to settle for a normal room while we ate dinner, which was still pretty good stuff. Muriel's is a very old restaurant in Jackson Square, which should indicate just how big of a deal it is. Chase had a big duck, and I had some lovely pasta and pork chop with bread pudding to round off the night with. It's good, and at a reasonable price for the area, but no baked Alaska. A tier. With that, our day of walking around was over, and we were tired, but satisfied. A nice meal, a good tour around the city, what a night. It was a great way to end the— oh, we have more locations? A lot more? What are you talking about? We're obviously done with everything. I think that at some point during this trip, I hit my limit. I didn't know I had a limit, but I clearly do, and it's somewhere around New Orleans. Cities have always been the hardest part of these trips, but I had no idea just how difficult it would be to tackle New Orleans. I've done some cursory glances around at other cities in America, and I'm pretty sure that the only places with more locations than New Orleans are New York and LA, which are never fucking happening, by the way. This is definitely the most I can do in one fell swoop ever again. I'm not even sure I could do New Orleans in bursts like we did with Tennessee. It's just completely fucked. You see how many locations are just closed or missing because of one reason or the other, not even considering the fucking car. But fuck that, we have statues to see. The last lightning round here is gonna be me front-loading all the dumb bullshit that we couldn't get into or I don't have much to say about, such as the House of Brohl, a wedding venue. The Buckner Mansion, a wedding venue. The Dewdrop Inn, wait, weren't we here already? Oh, it's a different Dewdrop Inn, and this one has a jazz hall as opposed to the other one, which was a jazz hall. More cemeteries, that's so awesome.
This right here is Lafayette Cemetery number 2. It's one of the oldest cemeteries in New Orleans. As you can see, it's got the above ground graves. Psych, bitch! This isn't even Lafayette Cemetery number 2, and you couldn't tell the difference. That's Lafayette Cemetery number 2. This is Lafayette Cemetery number 3. We've been to like fucking 80 of these.
Lafayette Cemetery number 2 and St. Louis Cemetery number 2. Plaza Tower, a building that was made and just never used. Tulane's Mardi Gras bead tree, which is the iconic tree that all the college students throw their Mardi Gras beads on at Tulane University. It was graduation day. Starting point of the Mardi Gras parade is right here on this unassuming unmarked street. Great stuff, you know, our hotel room's thermostat was locked at 75 the whole trip. To start the day off for real, we went to Mardi Gras World, which is definitely a more mainstream attraction, but one that's well worth checking out. This is where all the Mardi Gras floats are made and kept after usage, and they'll take you through and show you the process, as well as let you get up close and personal with all the funny little critters. I got lots of pictures from this one. They wouldn't let me videotape, but that's alright. They also give you a slice of king cake, which does slap. I thought museum cake would suck, but no, they're doing it right. I'm giving it the A. How about we take a look at the Eiffel Tower of New Orleans? When I say that, you may be picturing in your head some Vegas-style recreation, but it's actually way cooler and lamer at the same time. There used to be a restaurant on top of the Eiffel Tower that at one point was plucked off and placed right here in New Orleans. Right now it's between landowners and not being used for anything, but here's a video of the outside of it. It's closed, but it's cool. The Piazza d'Italia is a plaza made by and for the Italian architect community of New Orleans, which is very pretty, but I don't really have anything to say other than take a look. Our double feature of the evening is going to be the National World War II Museum and the Louisiana Confederate Memorial Hall, which are located right next to each other. The Confederate Memorial Hall is a Civil War museum with lots of artifacts, and you know the kind of people that go to these. I will say it's a lot better than fucking Beauvoir with its advertisement for Klan groups, but you still get a whole lot of that kind of way Southerners talk about the Civil War when they want to be racist but not open about it, like,
President Jefferson Davis knew he was fighting a losing battle, but took the mantle where nobody else would to protect Southern values.
Southern values like fried catfish and cornbread with honey and castrating people for whistling too loud. It's a D tier solely because Beauvoir showed me just how bad these could be. The World War II Museum, on the other hand, is a very popular tourist attraction and probably one of the highest quality museums I've ever been to. In fact, it's so high quality that I'm putting forth my first not obscure veto. I'm not talking about this because it's one of the most popular museums in the country. I've been here when I was 12. It is a fantastic museum and you should absolutely go here, but it's also literally on the road signs going into New Orleans. Shouldn't be on the atlas, but it should be something you should visit. Also, they were 30 minutes to closing when we went, and I didn't want to pay for some not-so-cheap tickets to a museum that we were not going to be able to respectfully enjoy. I'm not going to sprint through the Anne Frank exhibit to get footage for my YouTube channel. At least not before I get monetized. If you're in the mood for a smaller, more intimate gallery, here's the New Orleans Photo Alliance, a gallery for New Orleans photographers based on rotating themes. The themes of these photographs were double exposure, and there's some very cool pictures here. The lady running it was super nice and was excited to show us all her work, which is always way more interesting to me than a sterile gallery in an art museum. B tier is good stuff. How about an antique shop, which in practice is more like a thrift shop? This is La Belle Nouvelle Antiques, and don't let your eyes fool you, this is an antique shop, not just stuff. What's the difference, you may ask? It is a neat place, used to be home to one of the tiny tombs I talked about earlier, but no more. I like these kinds of places, but the lack of curation is very apparent in this case. You're just as likely to find some vintage cool shit as you are a 11-meter spool of copper wire. C tier. Lastly, Well, not actually, lastly, because I'm doing this day out of order. Our last stop of the day was actually one of the cemeteries, but that's not a good closer. Lastly, we return to the remnants of the Abita Mystery House in the Great Alligator Museum. I can't think of a more Cajun way to finish this list than with tons and tons of gator memorabilia. There's even a real gator, but more importantly, there's the exchange student, Daryl the Dog-A-Gator. How can you look at that face and not love it? I have to give it an S tier. The museum is lovely and perfectly kitsch. No boardroom in the world would fund a museum inside a 3-room building about gators, but here we are. This is passion. A kind of passion you're not going to see unless you go looking for it, and it's places like this that make me love doing this. With that, we headed home over the Honey Island Swamp out of town. Exhausted, but enriched. The Honey Island Swamp is the location. I just wanted to mention it because the GoPro died, but we did go over it. Is this stupid? Is it dumb that I keep doing this? Yeah, it's probably a little stupid, but I'll tell you something. When I first laid eyes on Leroy Brown, when I went to the Abita Mystery House, when I drove up on Greenback Castle, which you haven't seen, or the Bullweevil Town, or the Museum of Fond Memories, or the Hattiesburg Miniature Alleyway, or any other number of highlights, I felt something that I hadn't really identified before. I felt like this is what it's all about. This stuff, this expression of a singular, isolated idea, is what art is all about. Humans make stuff for fun, it's in your DNA, but the world beats that into an idea that it has to be a certain way, or it has to make money, or it has to be popular, or why even bother? But that's not why you make stuff, or at least it shouldn't be. I don't make these for views anymore. There are some videos I did for views, and I don't like them, but I like these. These trips may take so much out of me in the form of money and time and energy, knocks me on my ass for weeks after, spending my vacation days on something that absolutely doesn't relax me. Not to mention, it's unpredictable, obviously. It's stupid, it's slapdash, it's messy, and it's barely coherent. I tell you what, though, I'm going to keep doing it, because this is what it's all about. Thank you for watching. So this is the little ending segment that I like to do, where I'm just talking about what's next. And what's next is I'm going to redo the iceberg. I'm going to do an iceberg video that's actually decent. And then we've got another one of these trips planned. I really like doing these. These are like so much fun for me. And I hope you guys enjoy watching them as much as I like making them. I definitely have some more goat videos in the docket. If you're not into this kind of thing, it's getting kind of difficult to find new topics for that don't like break with one of the rules I've set for myself. But I'm getting a bit more open to doing different kinds of things. So, you know, it might be a little bit of a different kind of topic, but hopefully I can get some more stuff out. I didn't mean to take as big of a break as I did, but life's been busy. Life's been very busy. Yeah, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed.